Welcome to Trending Update USA. I'm Stefan, and today we're asking a question that goes far beyond tennis. What happens when a young superstar like Coco Gauff reaches a breaking point in front of the entire world? Because something happened recently that left fans not just surprised, but genuinely concerned. We saw a moment that felt raw, human, and deeply emotional. And it wasn't about winning or losing, it was about pressure, expectations, and the cost of being in the spotlight at such a young age. Let's start with what we know. During a tense moment, whether it was during a match, a post-match interaction, or an emotionally charged situation, Coco Gauff appeared visibly overwhelmed. Cameras caught her struggling to hold back tears, and for a brief moment, the composed athlete we're used to seeing gave way to a very real, very human reaction. Fans immediately noticed. Social media reacted within seconds. Clips spread everywhere. Now, here's the important part. Moments like this don't happen in isolation. This wasn't just about one bad call, one tough loss, or one frustrating exchange. What we saw may have been the result of something much bigger building over time. Because when you look at Coco Gauff's journey, you're not just looking at a tennis player, you're looking at someone who has been under global attention since her early teens. Think about that for a second. Most athletes develop quietly, away from the spotlight. But Coco Gauff was playing on the biggest stages in tennis before she was even an adult. From the moment she burst onto the scene, expectations followed her everywhere. Every match mattered. Every performance was analyzed. Every word she said carried weight. And that kind of exposure changes things. We often celebrate young stars for their composure, their maturity, their ability to handle pressure. But what we don't always talk about is how unnatural that expectation really is. Being calm under pressure is something athletes develop over years, not something that should be demanded from someone still growing, still learning, still figuring out who they are. So when fans saw Coco Gauff break down, it hit differently. It reminded people that behind the headlines, behind the rankings, behind the trophies, there's a person dealing with real emotions. And sometimes those emotions don't stay hidden. Now let's talk about the environment athletes compete in today. Modern sports are not just about performance anymore. They're about visibility. Every match is broadcast globally. Every reaction is clipped, shared, replayed. Social media platforms amplify everything, the highs, the lows, and especially the vulnerable moments. In the past, an emotional moment might be seen by a limited audience. Today, it becomes a viral topic within minutes. And that creates a different kind of pressure. Because it's not just about performing well, it's about being watched constantly. It's about knowing that any mistake, any reaction, any emotional slip could become the subject of discussion for millions of people. For someone like Coco Gauff, that pressure is multiplied. She's not just representing herself. She's seen as a role model, a future legend, a face of the sport. And while those labels are meant to celebrate her, they also add weight. They raise expectations to a level that can be difficult to sustain every single day. Let's be honest, no one performs perfectly all the time. But in elite sports, especially in tennis where it's an individual game, the margin for error feels incredibly small. When things go wrong, there's no team to share the spotlight. The camera stays on you. The reactions are yours alone. That's why moments like this matter. Not because they are dramatic, but because they are revealing. They show us the reality behind the polished image. They remind us that mental strength is not about never breaking, it's about how athletes navigate those moments when things feel overwhelming. And in many ways, this moment could become an important turning point. Because athletes often grow the most after facing emotional challenges. These experiences can lead to deeper self-awareness, stronger coping mechanisms, and a more balanced approach to competition. But that growth doesn't happen overnight. It requires space. It requires understanding. And most importantly, it requires support, not just from coaches and teams, but from fans and the media as well. Which brings us to another key issue: how we, as an audience, respond to moments like this. When the clip of Coco Gauff started circulating, reactions were mixed. Many fans showed empathy, expressing concern and support. But as always, there were also critical voices, people questioning her composure, her mindset, her ability to handle pressure. And that's where things get complicated. Because it's easy to judge from the outside. It's easy to analyze a moment without understanding the full context. But the reality is, none of us are inside that experience. None of us feel the exact pressure, the expectations, the emotional buildup that leads to a moment like that. So the question becomes, what kind of sports culture do we want to create? Do we want one where athletes feel they have to hide their emotions at all costs? Or one where being human is accepted as part of the journey? There's a growing conversation in sports about mental health, and for good reason. We've seen athletes across different disciplines speak openly about anxiety, burnout, and the challenges of constant scrutiny. And each time someone shows vulnerability, it adds to that conversation. It pushes the culture forward, even if just a little. Coco Gauff's moment fits into that bigger picture. It's not just about one player. It's about what her experience represents. A new generation of athletes is growing up in a world where visibility is unavoidable. They are expected to perform at the highest level, while also managing a public image 24/7. And that combination can be overwhelming. So instead of asking, why did she break down? Maybe the better question is, how can athletes be supported so they don't have to carry everything alone? Because support doesn't mean lowering standards. It means recognizing that excellence and vulnerability can exist at the same time. Now let's look at the long-term impact. Moments like this can shape public perception, but they can also reshape personal perspective. For Coco Gauff, this could become a defining experience, not in a negative way, but as a moment of reflection and growth. Many great athletes have faced similar situations. They've had moments where the pressure became visible. And in many cases, those moments didn't define them, they strengthened them. The difference often comes down to how those moments are handled afterward. If the narrative becomes overly critical, it can add more pressure. But if the narrative becomes supportive and understanding, it can create space for recovery and growth. That's why conversations like this matter. Because they influence how we see athletes, not just as performers, but as people. And that perspective matters far beyond tennis. It applies to anyone dealing with pressure, expectations, and public judgment. It applies to anyone trying to balance performance with personal well-being. In a way, Coco Gauff's moment becomes relatable, even for people who have never picked up a tennis racket. Because we all have moments where things feel overwhelming. The only difference is, most of us don't have cameras capturing it. So as this story continues to be discussed, maybe the focus shouldn't be on the breakdown itself. Maybe it should be on what it reveals. About pressure. About expectations. About the evolving nature of sports in the digital age. And about the importance of empathy, not just in sports, but in how we engage with people in general. Because at the end of the day, greatness is not just about winning matches. It's about navigating challenges, learning from difficult moments, and continuing to move forward. And if this moment becomes part of Coco Gauff's journey, it may one day be seen not as a setback, but as a step in her growth as both an athlete and a person. This is bigger than tennis. It's about how we understand success, how we respond to vulnerability, and how we support those who carry the weight of expectations in front of the world. Thanks for watching Trending Update USA. I'm Stefan, and I'll see you in the next video.